Okay, as mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about Raspberry Pi and how you can use it to join a already in progress Zoom event. So first thing, what is a Raspberry Pi? Well, here it is right here. This is what the Raspberry Pi Foundation has said they wanted to do with the Raspberry Pi. And I guess the most important sentence there is the very last one. We want to see the Raspberry Pi being used by kids all over the world to learn to program and to understand how computers work. I think that's a pretty noble objective. And based on what I've seen so far, they seem to be achieving that goal somewhat. All right, so what do you need? Let me just set you up here. Okay, the first thing you need, of course, is a Raspberry Pi. I recommend either a 3B or a 4. They have a little bit more power to them. And you can get them for about $35 to $55, depending upon whether you get the 3 or the 4 and whether you get how much RAM you get on it. You're also going to need the usual computer things. I get mine from Goodwill or some other secondhand store. USB keyboard, a mouse, monitor, keyboard. It must be able to grab an HDMI input, however. So if you go to the Goodwill to buy one, make sure it's got an HDMI port on the back. HDMI cable, of course. And if you buy on using a 4, you're going to need a new micro HDMI plug. You can get those for about $9 on Amazon. Now, this is just a little side note because I'm not going to address doing this tonight, but if you're going to use the Pi as a standalone Zoom machine, as I say here, you're also going to need a USB microphone. Speakers, you can probably use the speakers in the TV that you got it connected to as your monitor, or if not, you'll probably have to add some speakers to it as well. You're also going to need a power source, and the Raspberry Pi runs on 5-volt, 3 amps, so it's only about a 15-watt power supply. It does not use much power at all. You can run one all day long for about a fourth the price of a 60-watt bulb, old incandescent type. But you need at least 5-volt, 3 amps if you're going to run a Pi 4. If you're not, you can probably get by with the phone charger that you've got sitting around the house. The 5-volt, 3 amp is for the RP4 you can get for about $9 at Adafruit, and we'll talk about that in a minute. You also need a micro SD card. They recommend 8 gig minimum. But you know, these things have gotten so expensive that I don't buy anything smaller than 64 gigabytes. So let's take a look at the Pi. Okay, this is the Adafruit site, and www.adafruit.com. You can see that up on the top there. And this is a Pi 4B, Model B, 4 gigabyte RAM. You can see it's $55. The other thing I want to point out to you, let me scroll this down a little bit. They're all out of stock. Now, be careful. A lot of you might be tempted to go to Amazon or eBay and see if you can get one there, and yes, you can. But you're going to pay 2 or 3 times the price that you would pay if you wait for a couple of months. I just ordered one from Adafruit, and I think it took about 3 months to get in. So just be patient, and you'll get what you want at a price that's not too bad. Now, if simplicity is your goal, let me show you this. This is really, I think this is cool. This may be my next investment right here. For $70, you can buy a desktop version of the Pi. And again, they are also out of stock. But this is really kind of a neat thing. You know, it's just a keyboard, but there you can see on the back, there's all the outputs for a Pi. And complete full keyboard. You can see how big it is. That quarter gives you an idea. Okay, so let's take a look at the actual hardware. And here it is. This is my materials camera. And what I've got here is this is a Pi 4B, 4 gigabytes. And you can see it's got 4 USB ports plus an Ethernet port on the back. It's got 2 USB 3 and 2 USB 2 ports. So the blue ports are the 3s, and they're about 5 times as fast as the 2s as far as when it goes to getting data. Okay, here's the other side. Let me see if I can move that up a little closer. Yeah, that looks, oh, okay. This right here is a video audio connector. I'm not really sure how that works. The 2 little ports here and here are your micro HDMI ports, and the port over here is a USB-C power port. And there's your micro USB chip installed. Now it's easy to do. It just slides in and out. I'll talk about that in just a minute. Okay. Again, micro USB card. Now this is a case, you don't have to have it, you can run it just like I've got here. I got this sitting on some foam rubber, and that's what I would recommend, because if you look at the bottom, you got quite a few contacts sitting out exposed, so be careful. And your power supply. That's it. In fact, that's really all you need if you decide to do a run it remotely in a headless mode, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. Okay, let's talk about the software, because in order to get the thing to run, we need to have some software. Let me just get this back up a little bit. There we go. The Raspberry Pi RPI Imager is what you need, and you can download this from the raspberrypi.com site, and there it is right there. It runs on Mac, Linux, or Windows computer. Very simple to use, and this is what it looks like on my Linux machine. You'll notice that I've already selected the Raspberry Pi 32-bit operating system, but you just choose your storage, and then you click that little gear thing in the lower right hand corner, and that'll bring up the page that you see in the right hand window. There are several things you can set before you ever write the software to the card. One of them is the Raspberry Pi name. Then you've got to enable SSH. That's a secure connection that you can use. I recommend you start it up and then click the password on it. I also recommend that you click the username and password and assign a username and password to it, just like you would for any computer that you have. And the last thing, and this is really important, this is the most important part, is to connect to Wi-Fi LAN. If you do this at this time right here, before you ever write the software, then when you boot it up, it will automatically connect to your Wi-Fi and you'll be ready to go. You're going to need what they call an SSID. That's just the name of your wireless network. And a password. That's the password that you use to connect to your own wireless network. And then you'll notice it's got a time there for your LAN, and I left it at GB, which is Great Britain, because the Pi comes from Great Britain. So just change that to USA, which is also a drop down. Okay? That's it. Once you got that, you just click the Wright button, which is grayed out right now because I haven't selected a storage location, which is another drop down. It should highlight your micro SD card, which, by the way, you have to be able to connect the micro SD card to the computer. On my laptop, I have a little SD card reader that I can plug a SD card in. And my micro SD card came with, and I don't think I've got one here, came with a little adapter that you can insert the micro SD card in, and then insert insert that into your SD card reader, and then you can go ahead and run this, and or choose storage, and it'll find it automatically for you. Okay, so you get it all up and running, you get it all written, and it'll tell you when it's done. You remove the micro SD card from its carrier, insert it in this Pi like I just showed you, plug in your keyboard, mouse, and camera into the USB ports, plug the monitor and TV into the TV into the HDMI port, plug the power into the power port, and sit back and wait. If you run into trouble, you can see this web page for detailed instructions. This gentleman does a really, really nice job, and this page not only shows you how to set up your Pi, but also how to connect to Zoom. Be sure and watch the whole video. And as I said, how you connect to the network is pretty much up to you. I, like Al, recommend that you use an Ethernet cable, but you can use your Wi-Fi for 3B or 4 if you have it. And like I said, if you decide to use your Wi-Fi, be sure to configure your Wi-Fi when you use your RPI imager. Okay, connecting to Zoom is exactly the same as you did tonight when you connected to this session. Open your web browser, go to the top, join Zoom USA, get the credentials of your session from the little green shield that Al showed you 2 weeks ago, and that's it. You're ready to go. So let's go do it. Okay. Here's my Raspberry Pi up and running. Now, I am running mine in what we call a headless mode. All I have is the micro SD card installed and a power supply hooked up to it. That's all that's there, and a camera. And I'm running through something called VNC, Virtual Network Computing. I can connect my computer to the Raspberry Pi, and I get the Raspberry Pi's desktop screen shows up on this computer. So I can run it and control it from about any place. And you can see here I'm moving the mouse just on the screen, just like you would if you were sitting in front of it. Okay, so I click the browser, and I go to, let me see, I've got that, yeah. Okay. Join zoom.us, enter, and there you go. You click the little green shield and you enter your meeting ID, click join, it'll ask for a password, you give it the password, and then you're ready to go. That's all there is to it. It's that easy. And then it should pick up your camera, and you can set that up, and you're ready to go. Okay. Oop. Gotta go back one. And now for the rest of the story. What I just showed you is a pretty basic setup. I mean, all you got to do is write the operating system to the micro SD card, put it in, power it up, hook up the things you need, and connect to Zoom. But one of the things you can do, as I've already mentioned, is run it in what we call a headless configuration using VNC or Virtual Network Computing. And that way, the only thing you need is a power supply and the SD card. And you can just turn it on and it'll be any place. You can also use a Pi camera module, which you can get for $10 or $15. It comes with a real nice 1080p camera. And make a battery-powered Wi-Fi webcam. Yes, you can actually use a battery, as I say in the next bullet there. The battery that I've found works as the battery you use to recharge your Wi-Fi or your cell phone. Works like a champ to run your Pi. Make sure that for the Pi 4 it may have a little trouble. I haven't tried it on a 4, but I know they work fine with a 3. But think about this: you could put a battery on it, mount a camera module on it, connect it to your Zoom, and then take it outside and do whatever you needed to do outside. Watch somebody casting, do a casting lesson, all kinds of things that you can now do and control it with a remote camera from inside the house. Okay, you can add OBS Studio to Pi and Al. We've mentioned that a couple of times here. OBS Studio gives you a tremendous power to make really, really sophisticated presentations. In fact, this whole presentation tonight is being run through my version of OBS Studios. You can also run cameras on your Pi using something called Video Ninja, which is another website. You turn on your camera, get everything up and running, and you just like this. Instead of connecting to Zoom, you connect to Video Ninja and select your camera, and then open up OBS. Yeah, you have to have OBS to make this work, and you're ready to go. You can also connect security cameras or IP cameras to your Pi. That's a little tricky and takes a little bit more work, but it is doable. And I'm sure a whole bunch of things that I haven't even thought of that you will. Okay. Should you need any help, there's my email address. I'll be more than happy to help anybody that wants to set up a Pi to do Zoom calls or just about anything else. So, anybody have any questions?